Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Happy Easter, everyone. I hope you enjoyed a good holiday weekend. Today, I am going to take a step back in time to one of the Waltons' Easter episodes. This is from season 1 and one of my absolute favorite episodes of all time, An Easter Story. If you are enjoying these segments, please do hit like and hit that subscribe button. This episode was directed by Philip Leacock and written by John McGreevy. John actually received an Emmy nomination for writing this episode. And in the book, Goodnight, John Boy, this is what he had to say about this writing assignment. It was the first 2-hour show for the series. Olivia stricken with polio. I was given the assignment. What a challenge. Could we sustain our audience's interest over this doubled time period? Could we find ways to keep all our running characters involved? By this time, spring 1973, the cast, the writers, and the directors had gotten to know one another. I was delighted to have the challenge of 2 hours. This was, in a way, a turning point in my career. After the Waltons, I worked only on 2-hour movies for television and miniseries. We didn't rely on our memories for this script. We researched polio and what treatments were available in the 30s. Sister Kenny's approach plays an important role in our treatment. The dual threat of Olivia's threatened loss of her physical strength and John Boy's threatened loss of his spiritual beliefs brought a memorable response from our audience. We were number 1 that week. So for all of you who might have seen this episode when it first aired back in 1973, thank you very much for helping to put the Waltons at number 1. There were a number of beautiful visuals in this episode, starting with the opening sequence, which was filmed up in Fraser Park, and when there was still snow up there. We did not bring in this snow, nor was it created by computer graphics, because that really didn't exist back then in the way that we know it today. And then when we come down into this initial shot of the house, I love how it looked sort of stark. We would have filmed this probably around January, February of 1973, and it aired April of 1973. So at that point, it was still a little colder for Southern California. Now, how many leaves were still on the trees that needed to be stripped for these shots? I'm not sure, but that was done sometimes. And I just love that we clearly had some gloomy cloud cover that day, so it really gives that aspect of winter that we very rarely had an opportunity to see since we did film in Southern California. And people have asked us about how come there wasn't more snow during the course of the seasons of the Waltons. It was a lot more work to create that. In this case, they brought in some sort of fake snow and put it around the front yard for a lot of these various different shots where you saw the house. But here, we're still in season 1, and there's just the house. It looks starker. It looks not as fresh and not as brightly colored. And I think all of that really spoke to our brilliant cinematographer and our art direction team. Russell Meddy, our cinematographer, Ed Graves, our art director. I had a lot of fun with the storyline for Mary Ellen in this episode. Early on, we're heading to church, and Mary Ellen is trying to sneak her baseball glove with her. She gets caught by Mama and nixed on the baseball glove. She was hoping to get to play some catch with GW after, but that wasn't going to happen. But you do see then at the end of the church sequence, when church service is over, all of the children are sort of outside playing catch and stuff. And this was one of the only times I noticed that perhaps the children had their own sort of Sunday school service or something, because service is just coming out and yet the children are outside playing catch. So some things were still being set up in that first season. The church that was being used was the same structure that was used and doubled for the Walton Mountain School. So it was before we transitioned to the smaller church set that we regularly saw later on in the seasons there on the back lot of Warner Brothers. We spent at least a day at Frazier Park to shoot some of these exterior expanses and snow sequences and things like that. Clearly, I got to go up on location because there's some really fun sequences between GW and Mary Ellen, and they're up on the mountain and tromping through the snow, and really fun. We have a conversation as the camera's moving, as we are walking along on this log, and David Doremus and I are trying not to slip and fall off the log, but it's rather than us standing and talking, these sort of moving shots give us a chance to really enjoy the beauty of the scenery, as well as just some real life type things, as I said, just trying not to trip on the logs. And Mary Ellen GW asks her to go to the 8th grade dance. And at first she just says no, because she can't dance. A little later in the episode, you actually see Mary Ellen and GW back up on the mountain on another day. And at this point, she has decided she's going to teach him how to dance. And that includes the famous line from Mary Ellen,
"Are you going to take me in your arms, or am I going to wham you?"
So a lot of fun, iconic moments for Mary Ellen and her relationship with GW. After coming home from church and Olivia's not feeling well, the Baldwin sisters are there. And Elizabeth says something about why didn't they see the Baldwin sisters at church, and they explain that they go to the Episcopal congregation. So interesting, because in later seasons, we always saw the Baldwin sisters at the same church where the Waltons went. So sounds like something that they decided to fudge a bit for the purposes of being able to get everybody together in the same church. After the Baldwin sisters leave, Olivia collapses and is carried upstairs by John, and we are to discover that she has polio. When I first saw this scene in the barn, I thought, oh, they're cracking walnuts again, like in the homecoming. But as it turns out, in this case, we are shucking corn. But another just fun scene that reminded me of the homecoming. And again, John Boy and Mary Ellen have a conversation. In this case, she is asking him if he knows how to dance. I think she's kind of trying to decide if she's willing to take this step about going to the dance and actually somehow figuring out how to dance. And she's asking him if he felt stupid, sort of hippity-hoppiting around. And he says, well, yeah, but that's some of the fun of it. Something caught my attention as Ralph is coming up the stairs. He is holding this coffee cup in his right hand, and he hears Olivia call, and he hurries towards the bedroom door. Then we are inside the bedroom door, and we see John enter. Now he has the coffee cup in his left hand. Now, because we didn't see him fully approach that door from the outside, we could just assume that before opening the door, he switched the coffee cup to open the door with his right hand. But more likely, since these would have been filmed at different times, it was just nobody paid attention to it. This would have been everything in the hallway and coming up the stairs, which there were a number of shots like that, would have been shot at one time while the camera was there facing that stairway. They just pop in the different actors for the different pieces of scenes they have. And then we spent a lot of time in the parents' bedroom with Olivia in that bed. And so that piece of John entering the room would have been shot on one of those many days that we spent in that bedroom shooting scenes. I really love this scene where you see the children all sitting, standing, gathered outside of Mama's bedroom, and good nights start. And we initially see Olivia lying in bed as the children start to say goodnight and her replying to them. And then we cut to the children all outside the door, and they're calling to her to say goodnight. So just sweet that they are looking to hold that connection with Mama while they can't really be with her. John Ritter, who we always loved having on set with us, had a couple of days of work on this episode. In this case, he brings Olivia a gift from the Ladies' Aid Society. They have made her a quilt with everybody having signed it. And this quilt reappeared a number of times throughout the seasons, became just a piece, one of the props that we regularly saw. So I don't know where this quilt came from, who made it, who did those signatures, but it was just a lovely piece. Feeling unsettled, the children are tending to gather together. In this case, the three girls are in John Boy's room lying on his bed.
Elizabeth, I thought you gave that up for good.
I thought so too.
Big girls don't suck their thumbs.
I don't feel very big tonight.
And before we know it, the other three boys come in, and John Boy's like, what are you all doing here? You have your own rooms, your own beds, but they just want to be together and find comfort in each other. So for a short period of time, they are all piled onto John Boy's bed. Early in the episode, Ben recites a Bible verse that he learned at Sunday school, and then he says he's thinking about becoming a minister. Olivia loves this idea. At one point then, when she's ill, he is reading from the Bible to her. And then, they have a conversation where he confesses that maybe he's not so sure he wants to be a minister, but he's worried that Mama will be disappointed. And she's like, of course not. What would you be interested in doing? And he says, well, maybe a salesman. And so interesting that even here in season 1, we begin to see that side of Ben's character. And he finds himself selling magazine subscriptions, seeking to find ways to stay connected with each of her children. Olivia talks with John Boy about his aspirations for going to college, and they decide that John Boy's going to go over to Boatwright University and get some pamphlets so they can go over these and sort of plan his future. When John Boy goes over to Boatwright, he also goes by the medicine department. He goes and speaks with Dr. Miller, who's in experimental medicine, and talks to him about the polio. And Dr. Miller himself suffered from polio and is now having to wear braces and walk with canes and things like that. But he talks about this new treatment that's sort of experimental that Sister Kenny in Australia has been working with. And this was what John McGreevy referred to when he said they did research of the time, encouraging Mary Ellen to indeed go to this dance at school. Mary Ellen says, but I don't have something to wear. And she says, well, we're going to make you a dress. So that's something that Olivia and Mary Ellen have been sharing. And then Olivia decides it's time for Mary Ellen to learn to dance. So all of the children are gathered in the bedroom, and John Boy is going to teach Mary Ellen to dance. And so we have a fun scene here where the kids are laughing at them, and Mary Ellen doesn't want to move, and then she's leading, and then they're stepping on each other's feet, and then John Boy is insisting that she smile, and they get into these really over-exaggerated smiles. And there's a sweet flashback moment of where John remembers dancing with Olivia. So just a really nice sequence there. Jason is playing the harmonica for this dancing, and we find that Olivia unconsciously starts sort of tapping her foot. And so this is the beginning of hope for everyone, that she is going to make a full recovery. Jason goes to audition for a talent contest, and he and John Boy go in there, and it's a little odd, but Jason decides he's going to pursue it. Back home, he's not quite sure that he likes the song that he was thinking about using for this contest, and here we find that scene where Grandma is ironing, and Jason starts picking up on that beat and then insists she continue to iron, despite the fact that what she was ironing is done. But fun scene as John, as Jason, starts creating the song that we all know and love, Ironing Board Blues. And this is what John had to say in Goodnight John Boy about that particular circumstance. I wrote the Ironing Board Blues for Grandma in this episode, and Jason won a guitar performing at a talent show, which he later recreated for the family. Ellen and I sort of looked at the Ironing Board Blues as our song after that. She was always tremendously supportive of my musical career and used to invite me to escort her to the Emmys, People's Choice Awards, and such ceremonies. Now, John did say that writing that song, that he did it very quickly, that when he saw the script and saw that there was this song there, he was like, song, and found out that they were indeed planning for him to write something. And he said it just came to him very quickly. He's just that talented. Dr. Vance is present throughout a lot of this episode, and he's not particularly encouraging to Olivia because his experience with polio is that if you don't recover quickly, then you're unlikely to. So he keeps saying that Olivia needs to face reality and start learning to deal with the fact that she's not going to walk again, and encourages her to start getting used to that idea. The Baldwin sisters, thinking they're going to be helpful, bring Olivia a gift of a wheelchair. Very sweet of them. They said they consulted with Dr. Vance about the best choice, and it's a really top-notch model, but Olivia is very gracious with them, but I think it's really tough for her. When it's time to go to the dance, Olivia wants an opportunity to see GW and Mary Ellen together in this dress that they have made for her, and GW in his suit. And there is a moment where the two of them do dance together for Olivia. John has decided that all of the family is going to go to support Jason as he competes in this talent contest. Erin, who has been taking care of Mama, that's sort of the role that she has taken on in this episode. She's there helping her with this treatment on her legs and exercising her legs. She stays home to look after Mama so that Grandma can go, since she was the inspiration for the song. When they all come back, John says they're going to show Olivia what happened at the talent contest, and he carries her downstairs, and they get her all propped up on the sofa. And Grandpa, as the MC, recreates this talent contest, and Jim Bob and Ben recreate a little fun little dog training bit, and then Elizabeth recites a little poem, and then Jason plays and performs Ironing Board Blues.
Waltons playing the ironing board blues. Oh, the ironing board blues is old and it's new. It's fast or it's slow. It's just...
And we find out that he did indeed win first prize, which was a new guitar. And this was a guitar that then Jason continued to play throughout the series. One of my favorite sequences in this episode, and I think one of the strongest scenes written by John McGreevy and performed brilliantly by Richard Thomas and Ralph Waite, was when John Boy takes off and runs up to the top of the mountain because he is so distraught over Mama finally saying she's going to accept her fate, and he just can't believe, and he argues with Grandma, who says, well, this is God's will, and he doesn't believe that is the God that he knows. He can't reconcile himself to this, and so he takes off, and John follows him up on the mountain. This was also shot up in Fraser Park, so we still have all this snow up there, and so beautiful shots of them both running through the mountain and then ending up at this tall, high peak where they could shoot from below, and then also get up close with the two of them as they just have this amazing scene. The story resolves when one morning, as Olivia is just coming out of sleep, she hears Elizabeth calling for her, and without being fully conscious, she gets out of bed and she starts to take some steps to go to Elizabeth, and then realizes what she's done. And we all come rushing in to see her standing there. And then she looks out the window and sees these spring flowers, these crocuses that have started to bloom just as we are nearing Easter. So it is a triumphant moment of hope for the entire family. The final scene is the Easter sunrise service. I don't remember how we actually, or where we shot this. It may have been sort of somewhat created. I honestly don't remember. 1973. Do you remember what you were doing in the spring of 1973? Clearly I don't, but I remember a lot about the episode, but unfortunately not that. But it was beautiful, and a beautiful culmination of a great story. And as I said, one of my favorites. I mentioned John Ritter being in this episode. We also had John Crawford back as Sheriff Bridges. Joe Conley was there as Ike Godsey, the Baldwin sisters, Helen Glebe and Mary Jackson. Dr. Vance, Victor Ize, who I was able to work with over a number of seasons as Mary Ellen started to become a nurse, and then worked with him, and then had all those great opportunities to have scenes with him. He was a wonderful man and a terrific actor. And then our guest actor was Don Collier as Dr. Miller. And in later years, I also had an opportunity to do some sort of Western shows with Don. He did a lot of Westerns and had a tremendous career. Thank you for joining me for this special Easter edition of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. I will be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy and some more special guests coming up. Thanks for watching.